Today I will only be presenting that through my literary analysis project, which was my campaign essay that I wrote in the 12th grade this year in both my world literature and my AP government class. So just to give you some context on this project, since you guys weren't there with me, it was a project from both my world literature class and my AP government class that I wrote during the rhetoric unit of World Lit and the elections unit of AP Government. Throughout high school, we read and analyzed a lot of different texts and works of literature like Shakespeare, Kindred, Life of Pi, other poems and lyrics, and did analysis on those works. But for this specific project, we were asked to analyze an actual ongoing campaign for the 2010 California election. And so what we analyzed were TV ads and radio spots and print media in order to use analysis to identify the rhetorical strategies that were being used by that campaign. And then we had to use our knowledge of rhetoric and what we learned in World Lit in order to evaluate the effectiveness of those rhetorical strategies. So we got to say our opinion on whether or not it worked, whether or not it was a good idea to use that strategy or not, based on who the audience was, who the voters were, and what message was being delivered. So, to connect back to my thesis and prove that my writing skills have developed through this project, I was able to use creative writing. For example, in this first paragraph, I used a metaphor instead of just writing it out in a way that just using the scaffolding and the structure the teacher already gave all the students. I kind of take it and give it my own style and my own voice, and I used a metaphor for the race because I chose Barbara Boxer's campaign against Carly Fiorina, and I thought it'd be funny to do some wordplay with Boxer's name because she's a boxer, and I used the metaphor of the race being a boxing match between her and Fiorina. And it wasn't just like for fun. It wasn't just because I wanted to make a joke and make people laugh. But I still made it make sense. Although it was funny, creative, I was still informative and factual. Like I still explained what was going on in the race and built context for my essay. And the same thing with my thesis. I was able to use that same metaphor in my thesis, but still met all the requirements that the teacher had for me. By doing this, I felt that I was being more appealing to a sophisticated audience like my teacher, so it wasn't just reading the same structure that she gave to me, just filled in with my answers. It was like taking that structure, shaping it with my own voice and my own personality, and giving it back to her so she had fun reading it and really understood my thought of what was going on in the campaign. And yeah, I developed my own voice as a writer and gave my essay a tone, which other students were able to do, give a tone to their essay other than just answering the question. Some examples of me using critical thinking, or thinking critically in this essay, was I had to use knowledge of the rhetorical appeals that I learned in world literature in order to do analysis of these TV ads and these radio spots. You can see this in this part of this paragraph where I give my quote, which is a line that one of the actors say, or I don't know if they're actual people, but I'll just call them actors for now, of the commercials where they would say a line like, Fiorina never cared about people's jobs, Barbara Boxer does. And then my analysis was Larry obviously has the credibility of a working class citizen who has experienced firsthand being laid off by HP while Fiorina was in charge. So I was saying that this was an ethos appeal, and I had to use my knowledge of what an ethos appeal was in order to prove that. And then instead of just saying that, I had to get into deep analysis so that I can explain it to the reader of the essay why I believe that. So I go on with saying, having Larry say that Boxer cares about people like himself is Boxer's clear attempt at employing an ethos appeal targeting working class citizens and anyone who cares about them. So I got deep into the issue, and then I was able to then evaluate this rhetorical strategy to say whether or not it was a good or bad method of convincing voters. And I said that it was because considering who the audience was, California was scared of losing jobs at the time, was They cared about the working class, and a lot of the voters were working class. So I connected my own knowledge of who lives in California and who votes in California, along with knowledge I learned in AP government about the voting process, along with knowledge that I learned in world literature about rhetoric and the rhetorical triangle. And then personal connections I made with this essay were that it sparked a lot of interest. It sparked a lot of interest in me within that topic. So it's not up in this slide, but I can speak about it. That after writing this essay about political issues and running for senator, and these people are very powerful people in this country, and they really like influence how we live our lives. And to know that they can use a commercial to convince people to vote for them, it really like got me thinking. And I was really interested in that, and I saw it every day because it was an ongoing campaign at the time. So when I came home from class after analyzing that commercial, I would see it on TV and see my mom watching the same commercial, and I'd be like, Mom, she's trying to convince you like this, and this is the strategy she's trying to use to convince you to vote for her. I'm not saying don't vote for her, but just make sure you're making the right decision, because it's really empowering to know these strategies and to be able to recognize what's the ways of trying to persuade you to make a decision. I'll remember it. So, along with sparking interest, I was able to use, since I was so interested in it now, I was able to use what I learned in this project with other projects and other things I did at school. So, for example, in my digital media arts class, we were making videos, and I decided to make a video that was like a campaign for myself, because we were doing a mock election, and I was a senator running for a spot for a seat, and I was able to make a video and use what I learned about rhetorical strategies, and not just analyze them, but actually employ them and use them. And we actually had mock voters as well. All the 9th, 10th, and 11th graders, they played the role of voters. So I had to know that my audience was 9th, 10th, and 11th graders. I wanted to give them a specific message about vote for me, or the other message, don't vote for the other guy. And I had to know how to deliver that message in a way that appeals to 9th, 10th, and 11th graders. So yeah, that's just me really connecting it to what I learned in this project to other projects. And also, there's a picture of me talking to possible voters, potential voters, using rhetorical strategies that I learned. And then, right here, my conclusion for the essay that I wrote, I kind of give my own opinion on the subject. I kind of say Boxer's strategy, but perhaps Boxer's strategy wasn't fair. Maybe it's time for referees. Maybe it's time referees need to look over what they allow in the battle. It's still going along with that creative metaphor of it being a boxing match, but it gives my opinion saying maybe it's time, there's a way that we control what kind of messages are given to the audience. And this really just shows my interest in my own thought process that goes on after doing this essay, not just finishing the essay and trying to get the credit for it, but really going on and beyond, like the student that did the Dante's Inferno project, where he went on to like really think about it and really do something that made him feel proud. It made me feel proud to be able to make my own opinion about the subject, and possibly something I might be interested in college. Like if I major in politics, which is a major I'm really considering. I think it's really comforting to know that if I go into that major, I'm able to make these connections and these opinions on my own and be able to articulate them.